Well, in a few moments, I'm going to consult with the president of the Canadian Atheists and see what he has to say about this controversy in Victoria, British Columbia. Keith, if I'm not talking to you between now and the big day, have a merry, would you?
All the best to you and your listeners, Charles. Always a great time to be on here.
Keith Baldry is the Bureau Chief for Global News in Victoria. And as I said a few moments ago, Randolf Richardson coming up next. He's the president of the Canadian Atheists. And we'll take your calls right here on Charles Adler Tonight.
Hi, it's Linda Steele. Right now you're listening to Charles Adler Tonight. I'll see you tomorrow at 2 for the Linda Steele Show.
This is Charles Adler Tonight. Once again, here is Charles Adler.
Religion, culture, Christmas, government imposition of religion. Is that happening in Canada? Is that happening in Victoria? We thought it might be a good idea to bring Randolf Richardson into the conversation. He's the president of the Canadian Atheists. Randolph, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, Charles. Hi, how are you?
How offended are you by a poinsettia appearing on your desk because someone's got a lot of Christmas spirit in their hearts?
Not at all.
What do you want to say about what's going on and not going on in Victoria right now? What's the view of your organization, sir?
Well, we're very much advocates for freedom of expression, and that is covered by our charter rights. I think that when people start saying that a poinsettia or a certain flower arrangement is particularly a religious thing, that's hard to say, because Christmas is kind of just a holiday that people enjoy. It's mostly, what I noticed, the emphasis seems to be is getting together with family and friends and having a really good time with our loved ones.
So for reasons of, my own philosophy and heritage, et cetera, I'm hugely against any government, local, provincial, international, national, imposing religion on people and discriminating against people who don't want to follow the line and the national religion and all of that. This has destroyed a number of lives over the years. I don't see any of that in any of this. Do you?
I don't. And I agree with your view on that. And our organization stands for those same values. Secularism is a very important thing to have in our society. It's good for both religious and non-religious people because it's consistent with our Charter of Rights and Freedoms again. So our government couldn't support that if they wanted to. They'd be violating our charter. So I think that the councillor in Victoria is doing the right thing by trying to ask objectively about all these different expenses. And he happens to be getting to Christmas decorations now. And when people drag Christianity, say, "Oh, Christmas is a Christian holiday," I don't agree with that, because if you look at the Christmas tree, it goes back to some German customs that were not influenced by Christianity, at least. So, now, a lot of Christians do practice it and take it on and embody it as part of their thing, which is wonderful, but it's not exclusively Christian.
The trees and the holly, I mean, the pagans were fooling with that stuff a long time ago, and of course it got adopted by various Christian cultures. Let me go to the other end of this. What would have to happen for you, Ralph Randolph Richardson is the president of Canadian Atheists. So, Randolph, what would have to happen in Victoria or anywhere for your organization to become really energized, really active? I contacted you tonight, but what would have to happen for you to be contacting me and saying, "Chuck, I got to get this on the air. Something awful is happening"? Give me a scenario, a hypothetical, would you?
Well, I guess it would be, for example, a special treatment would be given to an organization just because they're religious. And one example that does happen is that I do disagree with is that religious institutions get special tax exempt status. And I think that since the reason for that is just because they believe in a particular set of principles that are part of a religion, that shouldn't be enough of a justification for the tax exempt status.
Okay, so let me give you an example that's very, very popular at Christmas time.
Okay.
You go into many supermarkets and department stores, malls, and there's someone with the kettle drum, and that someone is with the Salvation Army, and at the end of the trail, that organization does a lot of good work, and it's motivated by Christian faith, and it certainly calls itself a Christian organization, and it is. Where does Randolf Richardson and the Canadian Atheists, where do they stand? Do they have a problem with the Sally Ann?
No, I don't have a problem with them because I do think that they're doing very good work, and they're doing it as a Christian organization, and they have a right to do that because under our charter we do have the right to freedom of association, and they should have the right to do this, just like we have the right to do fundraising if we so choose, with an atheistic flavor that doesn't involve any kind of belief in deities. It has to work both ways. Where I have a problem with it is when people start to try to make it when they're imposing on people. So if, let's say, this hypothetically you're asking for, if the Salvation Army was saying that they're only going to help people who accept Christianity, for example, then that would be a problem because then they'd be violating our charter rights and they're saying you have to associate with this before you'll get the benefits of this. And I think that would be wrong.
And so if you've got a secular organization called the Girl Guides, okay, at the Sobeys, at the Safeway, at the Save-On, at the Superstar, whatever, and the Girl Guides are there, and the Salvation Army insists to the manager of the store, no, you've got to kick the girls out because it's our due. It's the Christian time of year. Get them the heck out of here and make sure that we're exclusive. I think you might have a problem with that.
Yeah, I would consider that to be bigotry.
Now, of course, some people are laughing because they think it's so absurd, the idea that someone with the kettle drum is going to, pick on the Girl Guides. But the only reason I bring it up, and I bring up an absurd example, is because I find this whole thing in Victoria right now, if you don't mind me putting it this way, I find it a bit absurd. I find it, and the councillor's not a stupid person. He's an intelligent person. Clearly, he likes attention. He's obviously trying to make some sort of point. But as we say in polite circles, he's reaching.
Okay. So, I agree with you.
Give me an example, would you, based on where your organization is at right now. Is there any issue in the public square, anywhere in Canada, that you have an issue that you're lobbying support for? Anything going on at all right now that's bothering your members?
Well, we're fairly new, but we are concerned about religious institutions getting tax-exempt status because that is taking away tax revenue that can go to the betterment of our country. Our organization specifically, we don't ask for tax-exempt status because we think that would be inappropriate just because it's based on our beliefs.
All right, before I let you go, I'd just like to humanize these segments as much as possible. Get people who other people don't know, and they're a member, or in this case, a president of an organization. But just the human side of this, if you could take me to the heart and soul of Randolf Richardson, were you always an atheist? What is it that made you an atheist, sir?
Nothing made me an atheist. I've always been an atheist. And to clarify, there is a problem with some people are working to vilify atheists, and it is unfair because it's based on a misunderstanding of what atheism is. Atheism is simply the absence of belief in deities. There are some people who conflate it with, say, call it anti-theism for better lack of a term, where they're opposed to the idea of a deity existing. As an atheist, I don't believe in deities, but that doesn't mean that I am against the idea that I'm saying that deities specifically don't exist. There's a difference, and it's a distinction that I find is missed sometimes. So this is another thing that we're trying to do is to resolve that by educating the public on it. So and I think it's wonderful that you're bringing these subjects up to the public forefront because even though they're absurd, it's really great that the public gets a chance to consider these ideas and discuss them and understand them better. Because even if we understand ideas that somebody may find offensive, this is a really great progenitor of progress because by discussing and debating ideas that we disagree on, we actually are more akin to finding a better chance of finding solutions. So I think what you're doing is a really good service to society. So I thank you for bringing all this up. I think it's wonderful.
Well, I hope so. I mean, there's some people who disparage the kind of show that we do. They think that it's all about division and polarization, just stirring people up and not giving them any answer. I mean, but it's precisely the way you describe it. You describe the way I feel about the show. It is, at the end of the trail, about developing consensus and getting people to understand that we're all human beings. Most of us want good. We're not a bunch of, closet case ISIS fighters. That's not who we are. We're Canadians, and we believe in the common good, the commonwealth, and common sense. Before I let you go, though, we had Rob Breckenridge earlier, personality at CHQR 770 Global News in Calgary. We were discussing a little bit of this, and he said, look, let me just put it right in the shop window for you. He said, I'm an atheist. Many people, in my experience, you may have a different experience. That's why I love having the conversation with you, Randolph. But many people in my experience who are atheists, the last thing in the world they want to do is blurt it out. They don't want to blurt it out to their families. They certainly don't want to go on a microphone or in front of a TV camera. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that when it comes to atheism, most people who do subscribe to it keep it to themselves?
Well, there's a number of reasons. Probably one of the simplest ones is that it's not something to be proud of. It would be like going out and saying to everybody, I'm a human. Telling all your fellow humans, I'm a human. You mentioned earlier that this desire to find consensus. I don't think it's possible to find consensus amongst everybody. I don't think we ever will, and I hope we never do, because I think this is actually good for us because it keeps us challenged, and it keeps us going philosophically and always finding ways to make things better for people. If everybody agrees on everything, we run the risk of stagnation and not improving and growing as a society. Oh,
I absolutely agree with you. I just find that when you get into conversations with people, if you allow them to speak for more than, 10 or 15 seconds, you find out that you may at the end of the trail disagree with them on the particular subject you started out with, but you find out along the way that you've got many other shared values. It could be a hobby. It could be how you feel about flowers or cars or motorcycles. It doesn't matter to me. But once you find out that you've got shared values with people, maybe consensus is the wrong word. If it is, I'll happily apologize for it. But once you find out that you share stuff with other Canadians, regardless of what your other beliefs are, I just think the world becomes a lot easier to manage.
That's very well put, and I agree. And that I think you're right. And also to continue answering your question, you're wondering about the reasons people don't indicate that they're an atheist. It's the same reason some people don't indicate that they're a Christian when they're with their Muslim friends, or that they're a Muslim when they're with their Jewish friends, and so on, is because in addition to it maybe not being relevant, they're just not wanting to stir up controversy where it's not necessary. Like you'll see a lot of people in the workplace, they won't go and tell people that they follow a religion or not. It's very common because it's not appropriate at work. And what it can do is it can end up alienating people because unfortunately there are people who have an expectation that everybody else should conform to their standard. And I've even encountered a few atheists who are like this and actually think they're anti-theistic. They actually think religion should be completely gone from the world. And I don't agree with that either.
Yeah, they're the ones who give atheists a bad name, and they're the ones who give people who are religious the impression that atheists are a gathering threat.
But it's not for me to say what people should and shouldn't do. Everyone's got to make up their own mind on those things. And that's the big thing that I support is, challenge the ideas, but don't tell people what to do. Help them figure it out for themselves.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you respect the sovereignty of the individual mind. That's very important to me. Thank you very much for the conversation, and we'll do this again.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Randolf Richardson is the president of the Canadian Atheists, and he is based in British Columbia. Here's what I want to do, folks, at 877-399-9898. I want to ask you this question, and it has to do with Christmas. And it doesn't matter to me whether you're religious or not religious, and if you are, which religion and what your heritage is. None of that stuff matters to me. To me, I treat all Canadians equally, and I want to hear from all of them, okay? So all of us have different life experiences, and I get that. But when it comes to Christmas, do you have trouble celebrating Christmas?